Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Godzilla film podcast episode. The last episode I did was with Daniel that we talked about Godzilla versus King Ghidorah from 1991, and let's say that episode was only like an hour and 46 minutes, and that was a really long episode that we did. We kind of almost made a movie in that, but this episode we won't go as long this time. Uh, so today's Godzilla podcast episode will be talking about Godzilla versus King. I almost said King Ghidorah. I mean, what I meant to say is, today we'll be talking about Godzilla versus Mothra from 1992, also known as the U.S. title, Godzilla and Mothra Battle for Earth. And we have a very special guest here tonight, and you all know him from his show Growing Up with Godzilla, and I was a guest on his show before, and he was a guest on my show before for Ghidorah The Three-Headed Monster that we did last year. And please welcome back Donny Winter.
Hello, my friend. It's good to see you. How are you?
I've been good. Yeah, Donny, long time no see. I haven't seen you since G-Fest, and I was on your show before.
Yes, you were. I had so much fun doing that as well. Yeah. P.S. Everyone, if you've not watched episode, what was it, 126 or 126, episode 26 of Growing Up with Godzilla, Brendan is featured on there, and we had a great conversation. But I'm excited to be back here as well because you know me, you can get me in for a conversation anytime. And it's a good thing that this one won't be as long as well because I have to be reined in because I am very long-winded. So,
But don't worry, we won't go as long this time, and hopefully there won't be any freezing connection problems like I did in the last episode, and hopefully it won't happen again. And
well, technology always surprises us, right?
right. So yeah, I had you on my show before on Ghidorah The Three-Headed Monster, and this is your first return, and I'm glad to have you back on my show.
I know, I'm glad to be back too. It feels like it's been a long time, but it also doesn't feel like it's been that long at the same time. I don't know how to explain it.
And we have some guests on here. Kaiju Brother, Goji Fan 98. How's it going? And got a yeah, that beginning was almost like a blooper. I almost
It was really funny. I love it.
Yeah, and also Godzilla Train 1090 is how are you doing, my friend? And
two of my favorite people.
Yeah, and so we'll be talking about your favorite Heisei Godzilla film, Godzilla versus Mothra, also known as Godzilla and Mothra Battle for Earth.
So it's interesting. This film is not my favorite Heisei film, believe it or not. Godzilla vs. Biollante is my favorite, but this one is like tied almost with Godzilla vs. Biollante as being my favorite. I mean, Mothra's in it. How can I not love this film, right?
Yeah, and there was a little freeze there, Donnie.
Oh, did I freeze? I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So hopefully we catch some of what you said.
Well, anyway, to repeat what I said, it's Godzilla vs. Biollante is my favorite film from the Heisei era, but I also love this one too. They're basically tied for first for me.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you this: like, how do you first discover this film for the first time, as far as you can remember? Like,
well, I knew the film existed because I saw the Trendmasters Godzilla figures. Okay, so like I saw like Battra and everything, and immediately I was like, love this. Like I'm interested. I am intrigued. Like I want to be able to see this film. Didn't get to see the film until I was like 12 or 13 years old. So is my audio okay? Am I freezing still?
Oh yeah, you're fine now. I can hear you better.
I'm just making sure because technology.
No,
But
we catch everything you said. Mhm.
oh, good, good. But so when I saw it for the first time when I was like, 12 or 13 years old, I was like blown away. Like this film early on was like one of my huge favorites because there were so many really cool kaiju battles in it. It was a point in my life where I loved beam spamming. Like I loved beams. So like this movie is just full of beams everywhere. So that's what made me fall in love with it initially. But also it was my first exposure to a more modernized Mothra as well, because like I had watched the Showa films for so long. Being able to see a newer version of Mothra was really cool, more modernized with like special effects, etc.
Oh yeah, and like I say, Martha in this film looks more colorful and puffier looking. I mean, they did make a Bandai figure of it, like this one, but not. This one's not as close as the film. I mean,
Is that the one from Tokyo SOS, or is that the Heisei one?
I don't know. It does have a tag on there. It shows a picture of the Heisei Mothra. But this,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and so yeah, so you tell. So what you said that you have discovered a Battra figure from Trendmaster, and
Yeah.
well, I got.
I oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I had a bachelor. No, so like my Battra figure that I got, like the Treadmasters one, met an untimely demise when I was a teenager because I broke it because I played
Aw.
with it too much. But no, when I saw like that figure, like I was immediately like, oh my goodness, like there is some sort of other film that has Mothra and Battra in it. I don't know what. Oh, additionally, I saw Godzilla versus Space Godzilla before Godzilla versus Mothra 92.
Ah.
So when I saw like, because in Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, there's like some stock footage, like some flashbacks to Godzilla versus
Oh
Mothra.
yeah, that.
I
What?
was mind blown. I was just like, what? What? So that made me want to watch the film even more. And yeah, like it took a couple of years, but I ended up finally finding it and watching it. But the truth is, the American releases for Godzilla versus Mothra and King Ghidorah did not get released in the United States until like 1998, if
That's
memory
right.
serves correctly. So took a while to get to see them.
Yep, that's true. And I'll tell you the story how I discovered this film. I mean, so like few months like after I discovered Godzilla in 1985, that was my first Toho Godzilla film. That's the US version of Raymond Burr. And and then I think it was like a month after I got the Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. I think I mentioned in your Growing Up with Godzilla episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right after I discovered the game, I remember that my mom told me that Godzilla versus Mothra was coming to cable television soon, and then so I was so excited, and I just wanted to sit down on the couch and just waiting for the movie to start, and then it be right before it began. My mom got a blank copy VS chess that you could actually well, first, remember those one of those blank VHS copies that you can actually record it from the
Oh
cable
yeah.
television and paste it on the VHS?
Oh
Well,
yeah.
like my mom used to have those back then, and then she actually recorded the whole film on a blank VHS cover. That was before I discovered the double DVD feature of Godzilla versus King Ghidorah and Mothra Battle for Earth.
What a good mom for recording all of it. That's
Yeah,
great.
yep. And right after she recorded on the VHS cover, I remember I used to watch this a lot back then. Yeah.
So, I have a funny story about, like, rewatching this film a lot. So, I okay, so one of I love the music in kaiju films, and Akira Ifukube's score for this film is actually if there's anything that might be my favorite thing about this film compared to all other Godzilla films, it's the musical score.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely great musical score.
Yeah, I love the music too, and yeah, and
Well, so what's funny is I would rewatch like all the scenes featuring Mothra songs so much that I would wear out my VHSs in those spots. So
mhm.
like we would be getting through the film, watching it, and then suddenly like the Mothra song would be like all garbled and like because I would listen to it so much. It was bad.
Yeah, I like the Mothra song version in this one, besides the other songs, and
Oh
uh,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I also love the twin fairies in this one, also known as the Cosmos.
Yeah.
They're like one of my favorite Mothra fairies of all time.
Oh, I love they're not my favorites, but I love them dearly. My favorites are the Elias from the Mothra trilogy. But we can't deny how talented the two actresses are who played the Cosmos in this film.
Yeah.
Keiko Imamura and Sayaka Osawa. They were both in fact, award winning. I do have some factoids to share about this film if you would like to hear.
Ah, factoids.
Yeah. So, did you know that this Godzilla film is one of the most highly awarded Godzilla films?
Yes, I did heard. Is a it almost won an Academy Award. I mean, it's I think it was like even bigger than Godzilla versus King Ghidorah,
It
and
was. So, this film did receive an Academy Award. It received an Academy Award for Best Newcomer and like a Japanese Academy Award for both Keiko Imamura and Sayaka Osawa, and it also received, I think, three other Academy Award nominations. Um, and Akira Ifukube's score was one of the Academy Award nominations. Unfortunately, he lost, though. But the fact that he was nominated for an Academy Award for this musical score, stunning. Like very few Godzilla films have been nominated for Japanese Academy Awards. So, at least to my knowledge.
that's very interesting. And as you know, Donnie, like way before they start filming Godzilla versus Mothra, that Toho was planning to make a sequel to Godzilla versus King Ghidorah.
Oh yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned this because the kind of like early 90s, right after Godzilla versus Biollante came out, it was like a very, very interesting time for Toho because they were largely trying to like plot out their like cinematic universe for Godzilla, right?
Right.
So they weren't sure what direction they could go in. They ended up doing like these fan polls, and they noticed that King Ghidorah was like most popular among male fans, and Mothra was most popular among female fans. Um, so one thing that I really love to nerd about, like, are Toho's lost projects, and I can see Goji Fan 1998 mentioning a few of them in the comments as well.
I
Um, oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something, Brendan?
oh yeah, I was gonna say that yes that I think I'd totally like come up with a few ideas
Yeah.
for a Mothra movie. And first of all, I mean, like what Nick said here. I mean, there are a lot of comments. I
So
was,
if you want, I can summarize the lost projects that were
I mean,
intended.
that's okay. There were two ideas for a Mothra movie. They want there's one is like Mothra versus this kaiju monster that is never. Yeah, it was. I think it was called Balgun.
Began. Some
Again,
people call it Bagon, other people call it Began. I kind of switch between the two. Yeah.
yeah, they were gonna make a Mothra movie with Bagan, have
Mhm.
Mothra fight him. But fortunately, that monster keeps getting canceled, and they never put
Mm.
him in any Toho films.
Well, so Began was an interesting kaiju because what they were, and this is just my interpretation of Began. Godzilla fans might disagree with me, and that's fine. But in the 80s, there were a few films that became very popular, like horror films that involved like creatures that could like absorb other creatures and take on their characteristics. Began was one of those, like they wanted to create Began as like inspiration from those, which would be kind of hard to pull off in a film, I would say. So that's my theory as to why Began would get canceled. So like there was a Godzilla film initially. What was the name of the Godzilla film? Was it Godzilla's? Was it the Resurrection of Godzilla? I think it was, where Began's first concept started taking shape. But then, like after Godzilla versus Biollante, I mean, they wanted to focus on other popular kaiju, from the classic Godzilla films, because Godzilla versus Biollante was not as successful
Ye-
as they would have wanted.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I mean, I kind of like Godzilla versus Biollante. I mean, I
Oh,
know
I
it's
love that film.
yeah, and you should check out my previous episode about that with Christine, the Goji
Oh,
girl.
Christine. Yes, I have to watch that. I've been meaning to watch that. So Mothra versus Began, what like I think was like I kind of wish it was a film because it was a very interesting concept, but elements from the film would later be recycled for Godzilla versus Mothra 92, and some elements were even recycled for Rebirth of Mothra in 1996. So like bits and pieces of what the concept was did take shape just in other films in a way.
That's
Jedi
right.
Granville is here. Hello.
Yeah, and my other kaiju bro.
Love
Eh,
it.
yeah, and also like there was another idea for they want to have make a movie called Godzilla versus Gigamoth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I believe, if memory serves me correctly, well, like Mothra versus Began was scrapped, obviously,
yeah,
because I think they were worried about, it like they were worried about the lack of success that Godzilla versus Biollante at the time experienced. So they wanted to go in a more like environmental direction
that's
to like,
right.
create some sort of narrative about the environment, which is something we've seen in Godzilla films,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and this film idea was they were gonna have like Mechanic Kong to be in this one, like from King Kong Escapes, but yeah, like like I said in my previous episodes, that King Kong's rights were expired
Yeah, they had a
from
lot of
Toho.
ideas. They had a lot of ideas. So that's why they ended up, well, so like Godzilla versus King Ghidorah happened um because of that fan polling, which ruled King Ghidorah being most popular among male fans. The reception of Godzilla versus King Ghidorah was it was all right. I would say that it was a bit, if memory serves, a bit better than Godzilla versus Biollante success wise, because of the nostalgia factor, because of King Ghidorah, right?
Right,
However, then they wanted to focus a little bit more. They wanted to then focus on like another classic kaiju character, Mothra, right? So
right.
Godzilla versus Gigamoth became like the next version of Mothra versus Began that took shape, and the story was super duper interesting, and kind of, I don't know, like very odd, but it was definitely had a very strong environmental message. But it too was eventually scrapped, and Gigamoth, the concept for Gigamoth then became the concept for Battra
That's
in
right.
Godzilla vs. Mothra.
Yeah, and then I say they want to make a like it's like they want to make an evil version of Mothra, so they come up with Battra, and I can say this, Battra looks so is so like it does look like an evil version of Mothra. I mean, for the larva version, I mean, first of all, before I get more details about the larva version, I mean, like one of the designers for Batra, they come up with different designs for it, like Mothra's normal larva form, but
Hmm.
but they decided to come up with this colorful, Chinese dragon worm looking kaiju. And because when I say the China dragon version of it, I mean, because look at the details of the larva form. It's like a
Yeah, like the coloring too. Yeah. I
yeah,
see what you mean.
and the big horn, and
Mhm.
yeah, and I gotta say that I don't know, like they try to come up with the sound effect for Batra's war, but instead they use stock wool
Uh,
from Rodin's.
that's my big gripe about Battra. Like they could have done something so different, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But no, it's interesting because Batra's mouth design also would go on to inspire Destroya's mouth design in at least the Destroya aggregate form in Godzilla versus Destroya.
Yeah, and I gotta say is Batra's mouth almost like inspired by Megalon's mouth.
Can we okay. The underwater battle between Godzilla and Battra was one of the coolest Godzilla battles in the entire Heisei
Oh
era.
yeah, that and
It was so cool.
yeah,
Uh,
and I can say the underwater battle scene is so awesome. I mean they, they just use the sets, and they actually use some blue lights and make it more water looking, and they just added they just pasted some bubbles and for the front of the camera.
mhm.
And I gotta say, I mean, sometimes people say they have a hard time seeing the fight scenes of it because of the bubbles and all that, and kind of like for it's kind of like the movie Godzilla King of the Monsters from
Yeah.
2019. I mean, for the Ghidorah fight scene at the end of the storms. I mean, it's sort of similar to that scene, the water scene.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that.
But
I mean, yeah, I didn't have any issues seeing it when I enjoyed the battle.
yeah, and that scene that they used. That was the very last time they used the Bio Goji suit.
Yes, I see, that Nick made a comment about so, like, this Godzilla film uses 2 Godzilla suits. Byogoji's suit was used for the underwater scenes and for the Mount Fuji scene.
Yeah, I mean,
Um, and unfortunately so, like, some factoids behind that. Um Oh, go ahead, did you wanna say it?
yeah, I would say when I said the water scene was the last time, I meant the for the Mount Fuji scene.
Oh, right, right. I could have swore that the suit was used for the underwater scenes though too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
let's talk. You were gonna say something about what happened to that suit.
Oh, yeah, so, like, I believe it was midway through filming, the suit was stolen
Yes, right. That's what I
from
heard.
Toho, and someone found it near Tokyo Bay in a very, very, very disheveled it was a mess. So do we all know that meme where Godzilla's laying in the wheelbarrow and, like, somebody makes a comment saying, like, "This was so dumb that Godzilla fainted," or something? That was the Byokochi suit being retrieved.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and when I heard while the suit was missing, that Toho Studios want to build a similar suit to it called the Battle Goji. I mean, yeah, yeah, I gotta say that. I mean, like right here, Battle Goji. I mean, they like for the spines, almost trip up almost right here to the head instead of the spines almost go way down. Like,
Mhm. Yeah, so Badagoji differs from uh so Badagoji's head's a little bit bigger,
yeah, and
whereas Byogoji's was more flat.
yeah, and I say the neck looks a little shorter.
Mhm. Yeah, like so Badagoji's upper body was a lot bigger too.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is true, and Kaiju brother in the comments. I don't know if I'm right about this, but for when Godzilla rises out of the sea, when the ship was carrying Mothra's egg, uh, for that suit, I think they build another. I think they use a third suit for that part, but
I
I
think
don't
it
know.
wasn't it like an animatronic suit, like an upper body suit that was used?
For the
Because it looks a little,
close-ups.
yeah, it looked a bit different, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about when it was when the suit was in the water. I don't know. They
Oh,
use like a third suit.
I'd have to
Just
do research on that. I'm not sure.
yeah, because of the face looks different than the Battle Goji
Mm,
and Bio.
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd have to do some research on that because I do note those differences too. Can you pull up Walter's comment really quick? The So one thing I do like about this film is the balance between the kaiju and the humans, even though the story between the married couple got a little annoying at times. Yes. So that is okay. Don't get me wrong. The human characters were funny. The married couple was super duper funny.
Yeah, but they were like divorced
They
and
were divorced and there was drama and like I did kind of feel bad for Midori, the little girl, but it's like I just felt like the comic relief of the characters took away from the gravity of what was happening in the film. So if you look at the prior Heisei films, like it was much more bleak and dark and kind of sinister. But Godzilla versus Mothra, the human characters were kind of hoity-toity and almost silly at times,
yeah.
which kind of frustrated me because like I would like the human characters to witness what's happening and to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. And they kind of do like halfway, like toward the latter end of the film, like the latter half, they kind of start taking things a lot more seriously. But um
Mm. Yeah, and sorry that my dog was barking, and I don't know if
oh no,
you.
you're good. I had an episode with Kim the other day where my cat came in, so our animals want to guest appear, I guess,
Yeah,
don't they?
yeah. I apologize for my dog. I don't know if you guys hear him. I mean,
I
and
did hear him.
yeah, and yeah, and Nick said that. So I was so surprised when I heard this back then that Tim Burton visited the special effects for Godzilla versus Mothra, and then in the same time of 1992, Sony got acquired the Godzilla to plan make their own Godzilla film, which until it started in 1993.
Yeah, and which, if memory serves me correctly, that film was also scrapped. The
Yeah,
Sony, this yeah. So no, it's interesting that we're mentioning Tim Burton visiting as well because the set, the Yokohama set for the
yeah,
final battle of Godzilla versus Mothra 92 was at the time one of the most elaborate Godzilla sets, most expensive as well. It took them a month to create it, and I think how many lights were there? Like 3,000 lights used or something to that effect.
I
I think I saw that number. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was
I'm I'm kind of lost count of that.
yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say the final battle scene of that, it was so awesome with the Ferris wheel and all that in
Oh yeah.
Yokohama. And
You know, people knock on this film for being so beamy, but that final battle, which is one of the longest kaiju final battles of film, was phenomenal. Like being
y-
able to see Mothra and Battra join forces, like you mentioned, the Ferris wheel throwing, hilarious.
yeah, and I want to visit that Ferris wheel if I want to visit Japan someday in the future.
Wouldn't that be fun? That would be so
Yeah,
fun. Uh,
yeah, it would be fun.
but so yeah, like there's just so much going on in this film, and I personally think that this film is like the underrated gem of the Heisei era because it does create a lot of like it creates a lot of continuity in the Heisei era. Because
Yeah,
technically, if memory serves me correctly, like the events in the film definitely lead to inspirations in the future films, like Mechagodzilla 2, Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, etc. But we can talk about that later.
yeah, and I'll talk about it in my next episode and all that and and Nick just said that he loves that final battle in the movie so much, and he never
Mm.
forgot about that movie where Eric Takarada returned in Godzilla films since Ebra Horror the Deep.
Yes, that was like his first return for a long time, and of course that was also part of the huge appeal of this film too. We had like a classic actor coming back and portraying
Yeah,
the
and
character.
he was in the original Godzilla versus Mothra or
Mhm.
Mothra versus Godzilla, and
Right.
yeah, and
So another thing that this film does is, and this is something that we talk a lot about these days, is fan service. This film did a lot of fan service because it paid homage very often to Mothra, the original Mothra film, and Mothra versus Godzilla. Not only like the music, but also like some of the story elements, like the Mothra larva, like coming to Tokyo and destroying Tokyo, and the cocoon being built on the Diet Building. Like
yeah,
all of that was harkening back to the original Mothra film.
yeah, that was it. They did took that from the original Mothra, and yeah, I also love the music when he was cocooning and when he came out of his cocoon, and when the Cosmos did, and it was like it's just so beautiful, and
Oh, stunning scene. Like I think out of all the Godzilla movies, like that's probably one of the most beautiful scenes, and it was done so well. Like it felt very otherworldly, right?
right,
So like I thought it was wonderful. And of course with hearing Sacred Springs, the song in the background, like phenomenal.
yeah,
Phenomenal.
and also I also love the Mothra song in this one in the film, but when I discovered the music video of it on YouTube, I mean, I love the music video version of it,
Oh,
and
the
and
synth version of the song, yeah.
yeah, and I also love the music on the soundtrack too, and I love
Mhm.
that version better.
Oh yeah, like so like I just they paid very close attention to detail when it came to the musical score for this film, and I think that that's wonderful.
Yeah, and yeah, yeah, and they did a great job and with the music and everything, and when when the fairies come to call Mothra, and it's like there was one deleted scene that they never put that in that part, and when
Mhm.
Mothra is starting to uh, uh goes into the ocean,
Oh
it
yeah, I forgot about that.
that was a deleted scene, and
Mhm.
I think there was one also another deleted scene of the film too. I think that it was a blooper scene.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So the reason, if memory serves me correctly, the reason why they deleted that Mothra larva scene, like on the beach, is because the special effects director wasn't like super satisfied with how the Mothra larva moved, which they ended up fixing later for Mothra 1996. But like I think that's why it was deleted, if memory serves
yeah,
me correctly.
yeah, and also let's talk about like the infant island part. I mean, when the track, I mean, the infant island is not like from the Shona
No.
era. I mean, like for the original Mothra versus Godzilla, they when the explorers arrived on the island, it's just all rocks. And when they went on the shore and they found the infant island natives and they brought them to the chief and then brought them to the fairies, and then when they brought them to the fairies and they it's just all plants and everything, they
Mhm.
said it's the only green on the island. But in Ebra Horror the Deep, it's just all trees, and I have all the natives trying to wake up Mothra, and
Yeah, there's some like plot holes and inconsistencies. I don't think the Heisei era, like I think the Heisei era is only connected to the first Godzilla film, right?
right,
Um because I don't think the original Mothra had like any bearing on like the canon of Godzilla vs. Mothra 92, but like they did kind of like change up how Infant Island appeared, like as opposed to being an island, being damaged by like nuclear tests in the South Pacific. It was
Yeah,
damaged by an environment, like some sort of organization trying to tap for national or natural resources, right?
yeah,
Damaging the island.
yeah. And I forgot to mention that there are no natives in this film. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it's just there's just explorers trying to find. I like be honest. I think I forgot what they're trying to find on Infant Island, where it's like in the earlier in the beginning of the film, and it has a. I love to talk about the opening of the film where it has a references to Indiana Jones.
Yes. Oh, what a
Yeah,
moment, right?
yeah, kind of like in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, they use some references from Terminator, but now in this one they use some references from Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
yeah, when the guy who is trying to discover the treasure of a golden elephant statue sort of thing. What I keep sometimes I keep seeing those statues. I forgot what they're called.
Oh, I can't remember what they're called either, but I know what ones you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean for that part when he got the golden statue and then the room is starting to shake. It's kind of like from they took it from Raiders of the Lost Arks, and
Mm,
except there's no giant rock balls coming down. I mean, this
right.
and then when he finally escapes and got out of there, and all bunch of soldiers stopped him. It's kind of like Belloc stopped Indy, and and then he hand him the statue, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of like that. Oh, and remember the bridge scene and
The bridge scene is really funny. It's really
yeah. And the
oh.
three of us together only hold 100 million kilos. Like,
Right.
there's no problem. Yeah. And then when the bridge was breaking, it's kind of like from the scene from Temple of Doom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, they paid a lot of homage to the
Yeah.
Indiana Jones films in the first half of the film. I
But
like I think it's fun, but from a critical perspective, I'm just like, was it necessary? But all in good fun. I love good fun.
yeah. And yeah, and oh, Goji fan 1998 says had a Goji Geek 101 visit the Ferris wheel and
Yes, I do remember that video.
yeah, me too. And it's yeah, and yeah, the bridge scene was also my favorite too, as the Temple of Doom references and good good thing Molaram wasn't there trying to rip
Mhm.
out people's hearts like Kalima.
If they would have gone that far, that probably would have been blatant plagiarism,
Yeah,
right? So, another thing I like about that segment, like the Infant Island segment of the film, is like we
yeah.
get a chance to, well, obviously, like the characters stumble across like caves that have like cave paintings
Oh
of.
yeah, and I
Mhm.
love that part too, and I definitely love the music part of that.
Oh, yeah, it sounded, like, really creepy. Then they
Yeah,
end up coming out, seeing Mothra's egg, and then they end up encountering the Cosmos, right?
right.
But what's really cool about this scene is it's one of the first instances where we get, like, a very in-depth history of Mothra. Like, Mothra is essentially the guardian of the Earth, um,
Right.
part of the Cosmos civilization, and the fact that this civilization once occupied the planet. They were like scientists, like very, smart, intelligent, but then they ended up making a mistake, right? they
Yeah, and
they ended up controlling the weather. The
yeah,
earth
and
wasn't happy.
yeah, and that's how like I think that's how Battra was created. I think that's what they said.
Mhm. Batra was created by the earth as like a warped version of Mothra. Yep.
That's right. And like and that's why this film was called Battle for Earth and
Hmm.
for the US title and uh, yeah,
Yep.
because they always explain about Earth's climate and then some changes to Earth and
Yeah, so a lot of like I sometimes see people criticize this film when they say that, oh, it goes too far when it comes to the environmental message. I don't think so actually at all, because like in the early 90s, that's when the conversation about like deforestation started really becoming significant, especially with regard to the Amazon. So to me, that's why this film really focused on like deforestation and how significant that is and what it can do, right? But the
Right.
truth is, it was a meteor falling at the beginning of the film that really caused all of the problems to happen.
Yeah, thanks to the meteor, and it
Right.
actually awakened Godzilla from his hibernation.
Yep. Woken Godzilla, it woke it woke Battra, and it also unearthed Mothra's egg.
Yeah.
Nick says Megumi Odaka returns as Mickey Sakusa once more, and
Yep.
so does Tetsuya Beso. Yep. Oh,
Yep.
Mickey, yes.
I love Miki Sugusa. It's like
Me too.
I remember in my Biolante episode, I almost had a crush on her character.
Oh, I loved her. I wanted to be like her best friend, be like her
Yeah,
psychic best friend. But I guess but despite that, that's actually one of my very few criticisms of this film is Mickey Sagusa's role or lack thereof. Like I feel like in Godzilla versus Biollante, she had like a very huge role. It was scaled back a lot in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, and
yep,
scaled back even more in Godzilla versus Mothra. Like, yeah, she was useful. She like used her powers to find like the cosmos who were stolen,
yeah,
but beyond that, her role was just reactionary. Like it wasn't like she didn't do a lot, you know, and I wish
yeah.
they
I
would
mean,
have done more with her.
I gotta say that Mickey, her character doesn't track Godzilla that much in this film. She only tracks
Right.
the cosmos, and yeah, she doesn't have that much role in this film.
Oh
She,
yeah. Now I do think that Godzilla versus Space Godzilla kind of goes back and corrects some of that a little bit,
that's
because
right.
we later end up seeing that Mickey does have a connection to Mothra, right? Because Mothra also is telepathic and has telepathic abilities. But I wish in this film we would have seen like that connection take shape a little bit more. Like it would have made what we got in Godzilla versus Space Godzilla all the more connected, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk about Space Godzilla, about Mickey's character in this one, and it's because she does much better, and I kind of like her character more in that film. But
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'll get more to that in the next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, and this film is like one of my favorite. I remember watching all the time as a kid, and I also want I also forgot to mention after they made the Battle Goji suit, and they actually update Godzilla's war.
They did. Oh, and you know, I was kind of disappointed in that.
Yeah,
Because Byogoji's roar was so scary and so intimidating. Like they
yep,
should have I think they should have kept that through the rest of the Heisei era, in my opinion.
yeah. But this new update of his war is will always remember throughout the rest of the Heisei
Mhm.
era. But his
Yeah.
original Heisei war is only throughout from 1984 to 1991.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that that roar just made Godzilla more intimidating.
yeah,
Yeah.
and his new update war for the Battle Goji and the other update suits in the next films, I kind of fits of the suits.
Mhm.
Y-
Yeah.
Yeah,
They also they changed his like atomic breath in this film too.
mm, yeah, and oh, what else I was gonna say? And oh, and yeah, like so this film was a success, and I also love the part at the end after Godzilla was defeated, and
Right.
at the end, I almost cry at the end. I mean, when the Cosmos are leaving and they say goodbye, and then when they're flying in the air and they just flying like in Peter Pan style.
Oh, it was beautiful because technically, okay, so obviously throughout the film, in the final battle, Battra switches sides or at least joins Mothra, right? And then together they they defeat Godzilla, carry him across the ocean. Battra dies, but like Mothra makes a promise to Battra to fulfill his mission in, diverting or destroying a meteor that's on like its way to Earth. So like at the end of the film, what makes it really bittersweet is that Mothra is literally sacrificing her life to go do this because that's pretty significant.
Yeah, and I can say how did Batcha became friends with Mothra is because remember the scene that Mothra did something to Batcha. It's almost like she put a
Like
spell on
heal.
him.
Yeah, like she like healed him or at least tried to like give him some energy or something to that effect. Protected him from Godzilla advancing, right?
Right.
So like no, like that's what I really enjoyed about this film as well because like the kaiju characters kind of like the personalities were a bit more developed, right?
Right.
Which I thought was really cool. Like they made Mothra seem like she had like intellect, which is, how she's always been depicted, I suppose, but even more so here. So you mentioned a few minutes ago that this film was successful. I do have some factoids on that if you would like to hear them.
Sure, I would like to hear it.
So Godzilla vs. Mothra 92 is the highest grossing Heisei Godzilla film. So like the most financially successful one, highest award winning one, and as a whole, it is the second highest grossing Toho Godzilla film in Japan behind Shin Godzilla.
Wow.
Yep. So, well, and of course, but I do want to, it's like second or third because if you count King Kong versus Godzilla, like King Kong versus Godzilla adjusted with inflation is more successful than both when you think about it. But
Yeah.
the fact that it's in the top 2 or 3 of the most successful Godzilla films, that's pretty significant. That's pretty
Yeah.
significant.
And also mention that when Battra and Mothra carry Godzilla to the sea, like Godzilla bites into Battra. It's almost like, and then some yellow blood kind of coming out of it. Almost spreaded Godzilla's face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was so sad. I was kind of sad when Battra died, but like that scene though, where they're both carrying Godzilla across the city and the ocean. That was the first thing I had seen in Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. So when I saw that, I was like, "Whoa! Like what? What?" It was so cool. Like I honestly think like in the grand scheme of Godzilla films, like that one scene, that image of both Mothra and Battra carrying him out of the city, that's such an iconic scene in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I do want to draw attention to something that Nick said below. The original idea for the ending of Godzilla versus Mothra was to have Godzilla kill Mothra, but then humanity to retrieve Mothra and create like a cyborg version of Mothra called Mecha Mothra. That was one of Koichi Kawakita's ideas. Of course, that did not
Yeah, that's
pan out.
right. Yeah, and yeah, that idea would be cool. I have Mothra into a cyborg, kind of like Mecha Godzilla and Mecha King
Mhm.
Ghidorah. They want to make Mecha Mothra with some. Her wings will be like dragonfly metal wings.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and the thing is, like, again, much like the Mothra versus Big An ideas were salvaged and recycled for Godzilla versus Mothra and Rebirth of Mothra, the Mecha Mothra concept was revitalized and recycled for Rebirth of Mothra 3, Armor Mothra. Not a cyborg,
yeah,
but still metallic and armored in
yeah,
some
and
way.
I can see like I should do a podcast episode of the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy, and maybe you'll be my
Absolutely.
special guest on there.
Oh, oh, be careful with that because you'll have me talking up a storm because I love the Mothra trilogy so
Yeah,
much.
because I know how much you love Mothra.
And heaven forbid you get me and Danny DeManna on here just talking about the Mothra trilogy because he might be the only other person who
Mm,
might love those movies as much as I do, almost as much as I do.
yeah. Yeah, maybe I should do an episode about it someday in the
Yeah,
future,
you
but we'll
should.
see.
You should. Can you pull up Jedi Granville's comment of uh, we have to remember that Mothra is one of the most famous kaiju out there, and of course it's female. Yes,
Yeah,
Mothra. In there was actually a time where Mothra was almost, if not more popular than Godzilla in the early '60s, around when Mothra came out. That's why Mothra versus Godzilla ended up being so wildly successful because they were so popular. But again, that's attributed to why this film is popular. It's also attributed to why Mothra is the most recurring Godzilla monster. Also has received its own series of films. Like she is literally up there with Godzilla in the grand scheme of popularity.
yeah, and all that. So we're almost out of time. So this episode will be like a 50-minute episode, and good thing we didn't go as long this time with like my previous one. And so before we wrap this up, do you have any more thoughts about this film?
I do. I have a few more thoughts. But first, my question for you, Brendan, is you know I always have questions ready to
Mm,
go.
Go right ahead, my friend.
What is your favorite thing about this film, and what is your least favorite thing about this film?
Hmm, that is a really good question, and my answer, I'm what I like about it is like I remember as a kid, I remember when I was a kid that I always get excited when Godzilla first appeared, especially for the Mount Fuji scene.
Mm-hmm.
That that scene was kind of difficult for the suit actor to act in that scene because of all fire and fireworks, all that, all the smoke. It's kind of difficult for him to do when they're filming that part.
Right.
And anyway, so like I like the Infant Island adventure and the battle scenes, and I also like the characters too, and especially when that boss guy who wants Mothra's egg, and then he goes crazy at the end. He's like,
Right.
it's, yeah, it's like, no, I'm not crazy. You're the only one here that's crazy.
That was
Yeah,
a very good impersonation
yeah.
of that scene.
But one of my favorite scenes and characters in this film are the Cosmos. They'll always be my favorite Mothra twin fairies of all time. Because what I like about them is I just like their pink outfit dresses. It kind of reminds me of a classic Disney animation princess,
Kind
like
of, yeah.
like you see those from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And
You know what's really interesting about the Cosmos is Sayaka Osawa and Keiko Imamura, they were recruited to kind of like do a promotional tour for the film where they would like literally go on live shows and perform that like synth pop version of Mothra's song. It was amazing.
yeah, it was.
You can
And
find those on YouTube as well, like those performances.
yeah, and they also been in and they also been in future Heisei Godzilla films like
Mm.
Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, but not as the Cosmos. But did play the Cosmos again in Space Godzilla.
Yep. And I think one of them played Meru in Godzilla vs. Destroyer. Isn't that correct? I think so.
Yeah, that's right. If you look them up on Toho Kingdom or Winkizilla,
I
like,
believe it was Sayaka Osawa who did, if memory serves me correctly. So what is your least favorite thing about this film?
hmm, that I'm not sure. I mean, sometimes the humans' characters, some parts like can be boring a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm interested of the main characters who are on their adventures, and yeah, and then the divorce couple, and then those fights, and especially the prison scene when she lets him say Messiah.
Oh,
I laugh hard at that part.
It was really funny. It was really funny. There's another who's that character who was in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah? Dabashi, I think that's his name. Oh, he was so funny too. He's was always making comments about like Godzilla, like just like being very dramatic all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, so my favorite and least favorite aspects of this film. My favorite aspect always will be the musical score. Stunning, stunning, stunning. My favorite scene. Although I'm glad that you mentioned the Godzilla and Mount Fuji scene because that scene was phenomenal.
Yeah. With
But
the
like that scene, like the what was cool is like as that scene was happening, Mothra's hatching was also happening too. So like you get like this like beautiful dynamic between like something coming to life versus some destructive thing coming out of the earth, right? It was so cool.
yeah. And I also love Battra's transformation scene. I mean, the like he just go into fully adult form that quickly. I'm feeling I mean, I think Toho didn't have enough time to do Battra's cocoon scene. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just let's just go ahead and just uh, have Battra's transformation scene right away that fast, like that.
Right. Yeah. So Jedi Granville says my least favorite scene is when Mothra and Batra team up and fight against Godzilla. Ooh, interesting. Why is that? I'm curious as to why you think that. I mean, I think the pacing of that battle was interesting. There could have been more done, I think, but they
Yeah,
could only do so much with those props. Like that's one of the big criticisms that many have of the Heisei era is that like the suits and the props were just so like stiff and and I think that
yeah,
that prevented like a lot of like movement and realism, right?
yeah,
Um, oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
Like the moth, the 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 full grown moths form in it because there's just you can tell that the legs do not move like the Shona era.
Hmm. Now they did great with like the face, like the antennae and like the eyes and the mouth moving, but nothing
Yeah,
else.
yeah,
So it was interesting.
yeah,
Um, but my least favorite part of this film, I would say, again, I think it's the like the divorced couple, like just
yeah,
the like I would have much rather have seen Mickey be elevated to like a main character as opposed to this couple because like yeah, they had an interesting story, but like it just I don't know, it didn't really go like I really couldn't connect with them. I think that was the thing. Whereas like
yeah,
in the prior films, like it was a lot easier to connect with Mickey Sagusa.
yeah. And Miki Sakusa should get more attention in this film.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
My actually I almost forgot about this. One of my favorite battle sequences is actually Mothra versus Battra over like Tokyo and Yokohama. Like the like just them chasing each other and the beat and them like ramming into each other. That was kind of cool. We hadn't seen that in any Godzilla film before until then.
yeah,
And I
and
think we forget that a lot.
yeah, and it does. I mean, so like, so we're almost an out, almost a few minutes left, and I want to say, Donnie, for thank you so much for joining me on my show again. It was great to having you back on here,
Mhm.
and I'm and I want to say thank you again for having me on your show, and and for for the people in the comments, if you want to check Donnie's episode with me in it, click on the link in the description down below. S- So, like I said, I this film was one of my favorite. It's from my childhood. I used to watch it a lot when I was a kid, and I'll never forget that film. And
Right, same here.
yeah,
Jedi Granville commented, "It'll take a great time to explain that part of my why that part of my film is the film is my least favorite. It would take a whole podcast. I would love to debate with you sometime because I will fight tooth and nail."
yeah, yeah, and
But So before we end really quickly, growing up with Godzilla, like, thank you for being on my show, and thank you for those guests who've been on with me. I've really had a lot of fun doing that show, and I appreciate anyone who is interested and willing to check it out and watch it. So, and yes, it's interesting. We did this
Oh yeah,
episode on Earth Day, and
yeah,
that
because
film celebrates the environment.
yeah,
How
and
perfect is that?
yeah, because the movie, the U.S. title was called Godzilla and Mothra Battle for Earth, and today's Earth Day.
Plant a tree, don't litter, and be kind to the planet, my friends.
Yep,
Because you don't want to piss off Mothra. You
yep,
don't.
and don't want to do that. And like I said, thank you all for watching and for Godzilla and Mothra Battle for Earth, which today's Earth Day. So happy Earth Day, everyone. So until next time, next episode will be Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2 from 1993. And thanks for all for watching. I will see you in the next episode. Yes, as like I said in Japanese, Saranawa.
Bye, friends.